4 American Marines are pinned in a trench by more than 50 Taliban fighters. Calls for artillery and air support denied. The radio was screaming at everyone to stand down. A Marine corporal hears every word. Hunched in the gunner's turret of a Humvee, a smoking M2.50 caliber machine gun in his hands. What he is about to do over the next 6 hours will defy 5 direct orders, and this is only one of 5.50 caliber stories where the half-inch slug from an M2 Browning did things to fortify positions in human bodies that no airstrike can. This is the story of the Marine Corps' 5 most violent hours. March 25, 2003, Highway 1, southern Iraq. The American push toward Baghdad had been moving fast, and a Marine platoon led by First Lieutenant named Brian Chantosh was rolling north toward a town called Ad-Diwaniyah. Coalition tanks were in front of him, open desert behind him, and on either side of the highway, dirt berms that nobody on his side had bothered to check. They should have, because hidden behind those berms dug into a long irrigation trench was an entire force of Iraqi soldiers waiting with mortars, RPGs, and belt-fed machine guns. The moment Chantosh's convoy hit the middle of the road, the trap snapped shut. Mortar rounds dropped on the column from above. RPGs slammed into the Humvees behind him. Machine gun fire came from positions he could not even see. The Marines were in what soldiers call a kill zone, and the tanks blocking the road meant there was no way forward and no way back. They had seconds. Most platoon leaders would have called for support and tried to hold. Chantosh did something else. He looked at his driver, Corporal Armin McCormick, and gave an order so insane it sounded like a death sentence. He told him to drive straight at the enemy machine gun nest, not around it, through it. McCormick floored the Humvee. The vehicle smashed through a breach in the berm and lurched into open ground headed directly at the entrenched Iraqi position. In the turret, Corporal Thomas Franklin opened up with the mounted .50 caliber machine gun. Half-inch rounds traveling at 3,000 feet per second ripped the Iraqi machine gun nest apart at point-blank range. The Humvee did not slow down. It kept going right up to the lip of the enemy trench and slammed to a stop, and then Chantosh got out. With nothing but an M16 rifle, he jumped down into the trench with the Iraqi soldiers and started clearing it on foot. He shot the first ones with his rifle. When the rifle ran dry, he dropped it, pulled his 9mm pistol, and kept moving forward in the dirt corridor, firing single shots into faces he was now close enough to touch. When the pistol ran dry, he reached down, picked up an AK-47 from the body of a dead Iraqi, and used the enemy's own weapon to kill the next group. Then he picked up another one, and another. Behind him, the rest of his Marines moved into the trench in support. One of them found a discarded RPG launcher. Chantosh had never fired one in his life. It did not matter. He brought it up, lined up the next cluster of enemy soldiers further down the trench, and pulled the trigger. The rocket disappeared into the cluster and erased them. By the time it ended, First Lieutenant Brian Chantosh had personally cleared over 200 meters of enemy trench line, killed more than 20 Iraqi soldiers in close quarters combat, wounded many more, and saved his entire platoon from being wiped off Highway 1. He was awarded the Navy Cross, the second highest medal a Marine can earn. And here's the part that gets you. When asked about it later, Chantosh shrugged it off. He said he was just doing what any Marine in his position would have done. He said the real heroes were the men beside him, but charging a trench with an RPG you've never fired is one thing. Holding a turret after your leg has been blown off, that is something else entirely. And 5 years later, in a Taliban-controlled village in Afghanistan, a teenager from Minnesota was about to do exactly that. August 8, 2008. Shiwan, Farah Province, Afghanistan. Lance Corporal Brady Gustafson was standing in the turret of an MRAP, a giant armored mine-resistant truck. He was the gunner, the eyes and the firepower of the convoy, and on that morning, he and Golf Company 2nd Battalion 7th Marines were rolling into one of the most Taliban-saturated villages in southern Afghanistan. They knew it was bad. They did not know how bad. Hidden in the irrigation ditches and behind the mud walls of Shewan were not the usual 10 or 20 insurgents. There were hundreds. Estimates put the Taliban force that day between 250 and 350 fighters, almost 10 times the number of Marines on the ground. And those fighters had been waiting. RPGs, recoilless rifles, mortars, and PKM machine guns were pre-positioned along the main road through the village. The moment the lead Marine vehicles entered the streets, the trap was sprung. The first RPG that hit Gustafson's MRAP punched straight through the hole. The blast came up through the floor of the truck and exploded into the turret where Gustafson was standing. In a single instant, the lower half of his right leg was gone, shredded below the knee. Fire roared up into the turret around him. The ballistic glass in front of his face splintered as more bullets struck it from outside. Inside the vehicle, the rest of his crew was concussed. Brady Gustafson did not get down. He stayed standing on one good leg in a burning turret, gripped the handles of his M240 machine gun, and started firing back. He had no idea where the rest of his body was bleeding from. He could not feel his right foot because his right foot was no longer attached to him, but he could see muzzle flashes coming from the buildings around them, and he kept walking his rounds into every one of them, round after round. The barrel of his machine gun glowed red, then white, until it began to warp. According to the Marines who were with him, Gustafson personally fired more than 400 rounds from that turret while his leg bled out into his boot. He kept the Taliban heads down long enough for the other Marines and the disabled convoy to get out, set up cover, and start pulling wounded back. Eventually, another Marine forced his way up into the turret next to him. Gustafson finally looked at him and said 5 words, "Sorry guys, I can't keep going." Only then did he let go of the gun. They got him medevaced out. He survived. He lost his right leg below the knee for the rest of his life, but every single Marine in that convoy made it home. The Navy cross they pinned on Brady Gustafson's chest a year later is sitting on his wall today because a 19-year-old with one leg refused to let 100 Taliban fighters kill his brothers. But Gustafson's stand was only one piece of what happened in Shaywan that day, because while he was bleeding into his boot in that turret just down the road, another small group of Marines were about to find themselves face to face with a Taliban force 10 times their size, and they were about to do something no one thought possible. To understand why close-range footage from this war hits differently than any other modern conflict, you have to start with one Russian chest cam that should not have survived what it filmed. Trudov, a wrecked village on the Zaporizhzhia front, autumn 2024. The Ukrainian moving through the rubble that morning is Dmitry Maslovsky, a soldier of the 1st Separate Jaeger Brigade of Ukraine's air assault forces. The action camera bolted to his helmet is rolling. His orders are simple: clear a half-collapsed building reported to be empty. It isn't empty. Inside, wounded already and hiding in the dark of a doorway, is Junior Sergeant Andrei Grigoriev, call sign Tuta. Maslovsky approaches with his rifle up. Grigoriev opens fire from inside the building. The first burst tears through Maslovsky's hand. The rifle goes sideways. The Ukrainian drops to the dirt, comes back up, pulls the pin on a grenade, and throws it through the doorway. The thump comes. He waits for it to settle. He steps forward expecting to find a corpse. Instead, Grigoriev is still standing. The Russian fires twice at point-blank range. Both rounds miss. Maslovsky grabs the barrel of the rifle and shoves it sideways. Both men go to the ground. Maslovsky pulls his combat knife. Grigoriev catches the wrist with one hand and bites the other one, clamps his teeth on it to make the Ukrainian let go of the rifle. The knife comes down anyway. Grigoriev jerks his head. The blade slices straight through the lobe of his ear. Maslovsky reaches for his eye socket, gets his fingers into it, pulls. Grigoriev rolls, takes the knife away from him, and drives it twice into Maslovsky's chest and once into his thigh. It stops. Maslovsky is on his back. He cannot get up. The camera on his helmet is still rolling. He knew what came next, and what he said in those last few minutes is why this video stopped being a piece of war footage and started being something closer to a parable. He asked the Russian to stop. He told him he was done. He said, "Please let me die in peace. You've already killed me." And then, with what was left of him, he told the man who had just killed him, "You were the best fighter in the world." The Russian did not finish him. He stepped back, let him go. Within a week of being uploaded, the clip had been seen tens of millions of times across every platform that allows that kind of footage. Russian state media played it on a loop. Tuta was personally awarded the title Hero of Russia by Vladimir Putin. The Ukrainian's name was added to a list of the dead. In the weeks that followed, Russian television sat Tuta down in a studio and asked him to walk through what happened. He could not really do it. He said he had not watched the video himself. He said the part he could not get past was not the knife. It was the look on the other man's face when he asked to be left alone. Nothing else in this war has come close to it, and nothing in this video that follows will either. But every other clip on this list answers a different question, and the next one answers what happens when it isn't two men in a doorway. It's a whole squad walking into a building they should never have opened. A few months earlier, different war, almost, because this one looks the way the Kremlin wants its war to look, brutal in a professional way, not a personal one. The footage opens on a Russian assault group moving across open ground toward a low concrete building. 2 stories. Pre-war, it might have been a farm office. By the day of the clip, intelligence said Ukrainians were inside it, a small position dug in, holding the building as a fire base. The Russians moved fast, body cameras on at least 2 of them, rifles up. The shot we are watching is from inside one of those helmets. You can hear the radio in his collar, see the back of the soldier in front of him. The whole approach takes maybe 40 seconds. Then everything changes at once. The first man through the door gets fired on immediately. Inside the building, somewhere a Ukrainian opens up. The Russians answer. Inside concrete walls, automatic fire does not crack. It hammers. Every burst comes back twice. Once from the muzzle, once from the wall it just bounced off. You cannot tell where anything is coming from. The man at the back of the stack does not even know who is still standing in front of him. They start clearing rooms, one door at a time. The footage tilts and jerks as the cameraman ducks low, raises, fires, ducks again. Someone screams in Russian. Someone else screams in Ukrainian. A grenade goes off in a room they have not reached yet. The whole frame fills with gray dust. Then comes the RPG. A Russian voice yells one word. 3 other voices yell back. Whoever is carrying the launcher steps forward, takes a knee and fires it into a room maybe 10 meters in front of him, fires it inside the same building he is standing in. The pressure wave nearly knocks the camera off the helmet. The screen whites out. Plaster rains down from the ceiling. When the dust clears, there is a hole where a wall used to be, and the gunfire that was coming from behind it has stopped. The casualty count on either side, the Russian Defense Ministry never confirmed. The Ukrainians never released theirs either. Neither side wanted to talk about how many men it took to clear a single small building. But this is the footage the title of this video literally promises. This is what Russian camera close range looks like when you strip away the storytelling and just show the raw work of it. Concrete walls, filtered light through dust. A man with a rifle who does not know how many other men with rifles are waiting 2 rooms ahead. Bad as that is, there is a worse version of it, because at least inside a building you can see where the walls are. The next fight is in a place where there are no walls at all, and no way to know how close the man trying to kill you actually is. March 23, 2003. Nasiriyah, southern Iraq. 3 days into the American invasion, an army supply convoy from the 507th Maintenance Company took a wrong turn. They drove straight into the city of Nasiriyah, which was crawling with Iraqi soldiers and Fedayeen militia fighters waiting for exactly this kind of mistake. Within minutes, the convoy was being torn apart. 11 American soldiers were killed. 6 were captured, including a 19-year-old supply clerk named Jessica Lynch, whose name the entire country would soon know. The Marine unit closest to the disaster was Task Force Tarawa, and the man who got the call to go in and pull survivors out of that city was Gunnery Sergeant Justin Liu. Liu was an amphibious assault platoon sergeant riding inside an armored tracked troop carrier. His unit drove into Nasiriyah under heavy machine gun fire, working toward the trapped army convoy. They reached the wounded. Liu personally helped evacuate 4 soldiers, 2 of them critically wounded, while bullets slammed into the side of his vehicle. That was just the beginning of his day. After the rescue, the Marines pushed deeper into the city to secure the southern bridge across the Euphrates. Without it, the American advance toward Baghdad would stall. The Marines fought house to house through a stretch of the city the Army had nicknamed Ambush Alley. The fighting was so close that Leahy was working 3 weapons at once: the M2.50 caliber heavy machine gun, the MK19 40mm grenade launcher, and his M16 rifle, switching depending on what target appeared in front of him. Then, a second disaster hit. One of the AAVs in his company was struck by RPG fire and ripped open. Inside were 9 Marines. Some were wounded, screaming. The vehicle was on fire, ammunition was cooking off, and the area was raked by enemy machine gun fire. LeHue ran straight at it, 70 yards across open ground, under live fire again and again. He made multiple sprints back and forth to the destroyed AAV, dragging bodies and wounded Marines out one by one. According to those who were with him, he was picking pieces of his own men out of the wreckage, while the Iraqi fighters tried to finish what they had started. And in the middle of all that, Liu was still calling in airstrikes and directing tank fire on enemy positions over the radio. He coordinated the medevac of every American casualty. Then he kept fighting. The Battle of Nasiriyah cost the Marines 18 lives. It would have cost many, many more without him. Justin Liu was awarded the Navy Cross and nicknamed the Hero of Nasiriyah. 5 impossible fights against enemy forces that should have wiped them out. The .50 caliber machine gun on top of a Humvee is just a piece of steel. What turns it into the most feared weapon on the battlefield is the Marine standing behind it, who has already decided he is not leaving until everyone he came with is leaving too. That is what fearless actually means. Not the absence of fear, the refusal to let it decide for you. And the next time you hear someone use the word hero too lightly, remember these 5 names, because they earned it the only way it can ever really be earned: the hard way.